What if I told you everything you knew about the 7 deadly sins was a massive misconception? What if pride, greed, and wrath aren't vices meant for punishment, but rather distorted superpowers that you can actually reclaim? Sounds provocative? Maybe. But today we're embarking on a journey far beyond dogma and conventional wisdom. We're going to uncover the esoteric code locked within the concept of the 7 deadly sins. You'll discover the truth behind each one, and why understanding this secret could radically transform your reality. Get ready, because after this, you will never look at your so-called flaws the same way again. Do you already agree that there's a hidden power in every sin? Drop a yes or no in the comments right now, and we'll circle back to this idea later. Before we dive into those forbidden depths, let's set the stage. Where did this infamous list actually originate? Most people assume it came straight out of the Bible. That is incorrect. Its roots trace back to the 4th century writings of the Christian ascetic monk Evagrius Ponticus. He originally outlined not 7, but 8 evil thoughts, or logismoi. These weren't sins in the modern moralistic sense, but rather core psychic obstacles blocking the path to spiritual enlightenment and union with the divine. Later, in the 6th century, Pope Gregory the Great streamlined this list to 7 and gave it the strict, moralizing tone we recognize today. Thus was born the rigid concept that has been used for centuries as a tool for control and guilt manipulation. However, the esoteric tradition, the one that flows like an underground river beneath orthodox doctrine, always saw something entirely different in these passions. It saw them as the fundamental raw energies of the human soul. Energies that were simply distorted, blocked, or gravely misdirected. Our goal today is not to condemn them, but to understand their original language and their intended purpose. We begin with the mother of all sins, the very peak of the spiritual hierarchy, pride. On the surface, it seems straightforward. Pride is arrogance, narcissism, and excessive self-regard. It is the act of placing oneself above others, and crucially, above the divine. But let us look deeper into the very root of this phenomenon, using an esoteric scalpel. What does placing yourself above the divine truly mean on an energetic level? It is the ultimate act of separation. Imagine the vast ocean of infinite consciousness, the unified source of all existence. Now picture a single drop that suddenly decides it is distinct, special, and superior to the entire rest of the ocean. That is pride in its profoundest sense. It is the illusion of separateness, the belief that the I is somehow disconnected from the cosmos. The ego, which builds defensive fortress walls to protect its perceived uniqueness, is actually constructing its own prison. Pride is the fundamental forgetting of our true nature, the fundamental unity we share with all life. It compels us to compete, compare, judge, and condemn. After all, if we are all truly one, who is left to compete against? Who remains to condemn? This sin effectively blocks the primary conduit to intuition, the higher self, and the divine flow. The person consumed by pride cannot receive guidance or help from above because their ego is constantly screaming, "I already know everything." It is a form of spiritual deafness induced by the overwhelming noise of one's own self-importance. This state inevitably breeds fear, for when you stand alone against the universe, the world appears inherently hostile. Now visualize the image appearing on your inner screen, a solitary figure meticulously building a towering structure. This tower casts a chilling shadow across the vibrant, blossoming world below. That tower is his pride, isolating him entirely from the light. To continue our discussion on pride, we need to delve into its psychological underpinnings. This isn't just a philosophical idea, it's a very real process unfolding within our minds. Pride is essentially a defense mechanism, a reaction to a deep-seated feeling of inadequacy or worthlessness. The more insignificant and vulnerable a person feels inside, the more grandiose and impenetrable a facade they feel compelled to construct externally. Think of it like a small, frightened creature puffing itself up to enormous size to scare away predators. Narcissism, which has become almost epidemic today, is a direct result of this underlying dynamic. A person consumed by pride constantly requires external validation, likes, admiration, and flattery. They build their identity not on the solid foundation of inner self-knowledge, but on the fragile scaffolding of external approval, and this makes them incredibly vulnerable. Any criticism or disagreement is perceived as a mortal threat to their very existence, because their inflated ego is merely a soap bubble terrified of any sharp word. On the spiritual path, pride manifests as the so-called spiritual ego, when someone starts believing they are more enlightened or more conscious than others. They boast about their meditations, their practices, and their specialized knowledge. But this is the same old trap, just wrapped in new, shiny packaging. True spirituality leads to genuine humility and the profound realization of how little you truly know. The transformation of pride is not about self-abasement. It doesn't mean viewing yourself as nobody. Quite the opposite. It means recognizing yourself as everything. The transmutation of pride is the process of dissolving the illusion of separation and realizing your unity with the world. It's the shift from narcissistic self-absorption to unconditional self-love, recognizing yourself as a fundamental, divine particle. It is the transition from I am better than everyone to I am everything, and everything is me. Now, let's take a step deeper and talk about avarice or greed. Traditionally, it's associated with money and material possessions. The greedy person is someone who constantly desires more and more wealth. They can never be satisfied. But that is just one very obvious room in the enormous castle of greed. The esoteric understanding of this particular sin is far broader. Greed is an insatiable craving to possess, and it can be directed toward absolutely anything. One can be greedy for power, for fame, for knowledge, for experiences, or even for the attention of others. There is even a form of greed within spirituality, often called spiritual materialism, where a person collects initiations, retreats, and gurus, yet fails to truly live or integrate the experience they gather. At the root of greed lies not a love of possessing, but a panicked fear of loss. It is an energy born from a deep sense of deficiency, from a core poverty consciousness. A person consumed by greed never truly feels wealthy, no matter how much they accumulate. Inside them yawns a black hole they desperately try to fill with something external. But the outer world can never truly fill an inner void. This is why the chase becomes endless. Every new million, every fresh morsel of power or knowledge offers only temporary relief, after which the emptiness is felt even more acutely. It's like drinking salt water to quench your thirst. On an energetic level, greed is a spasm, a fundamental constriction. It is the inability of energy to flow freely. The greedy person resembles a pump that only works on intake. It can suck everything in, but it cannot give anything out. They accumulate, they preserve, they hoard, terrified of letting go. Yet according to the laws of the universe, in order to receive, you must first release. To inhale, you must first exhale. Greed violates this fundamental law of energetic exchange, creating a stagnation that ultimately poisons the person themselves. Picture the image of a person sitting atop a mountain of gold, yet starving to death because they cannot bring themselves to spend a single coin. How do we actually transform this destructive energy of greed? The key to its conversion lies in shifting our focus entirely from the external world to the inner self. Instead of constantly trying to fill an internal void with external possessions, we must locate the source of genuine abundance within us. The transmutation of greed is fundamentally a transition from a mindset of scarcity to a mindset of absolute abundance. This is a deep, cellular level realization that the universe is infinitely generous and that you already possess everything necessary for true happiness and a complete life. The most practical tool we have for achieving this is gratitude. when you consciously start expressing thanks for what you already have, the air you breathe, the roof over your head, the smile of a loved one, you instantly recalibrate your perception away from what is missing and toward what is present. Your energetic focus shifts from the black hole of scarcity to a brilliant, glowing sphere of abundance. Greed is ultimately just a fear of the future. People hoard because they are terrified that tomorrow they won't have what they need. The true antidote to this fear is trust. Trust in life, trust in the universe, and trust in yourself. It is the faith that when the necessary moment arrives, all the required resources will be available to you. This doesn't mean sitting idly by. It means acting from a state of calm confidence rather than one of panic desperation. When greed is successfully transformed, it elevates to its highest octave. True generosity and the ability to joyfully participate in the flow of life. We begin to understand that genuine wealth isn't about hoarding, it's about allowing energy to flow through us and sharing it freely. The person shifts from being a dead end for resources to becoming a willing conduit. They give joyfully, operating from the knowledge that the more they give out, the more naturally flows back to them. The energy of stagnation dissolves, transforming into a mighty river of abundance that sustains both the individual and the world around them. The next sin on our list is lust. It is perhaps the most heavily judged and shame-ridden concept. For centuries we have been taught that our carnal desires are dirty, base, and animalistic, things we must suppress and strictly control. Esoteric wisdom, however, views this completely differently. It asserts that the energy we label as lust is, at its core, a sacred creative force. It is the very energy of life, Kundalini, always striving for creation, union, and expansion. It is the identical force that causes flowers to bloom and ignites the stars. The problem, therefore, is not the energy itself, but how we interact with it. Lust is not sexual energy. It is the distortion of that energy. It's when this powerful creative force becomes detached from the heart, detached from love, and detached from consciousness, transforming into a blind, insatiable craving. It is when a person becomes a slave to their own craving, using other people purely as objects for their own gratification, failing to recognize the soul within them. Lust, much like greed, originates from a place of deep inner emptiness. It is a desperate attempt to feel truly alive through a peak, intense experience. When life seems mundane and meaningless, the relentless chase for orgasm, or extreme thrills, becomes the only perceived way to momentarily escape the prison of the mind. But this operates just like an addiction. The dose continually demands to be increased, yet it never delivers lasting fulfillment. The esoteric understanding of lust extends far beyond the purely sexual. We can exhibit lust for food, lust for power, lust for risk, or lust for drama. It is any uncontrolled, compulsive craving for intense sensation that possesses an individual and strips them of their free will. It is the drive to consume, the object of desire, seeking a brief moment of reprieve from internal pain. Picture a moth flying toward a candle flame. It is utterly unable to resist the pull of that attraction, and that very pull destroys it. That is the perfect metaphor for lust. The transmutation of desire, or lust, is one of the most profound acts of spiritual alchemy. It's the process of converting that raw, untamed energy into the pure gold of consciousness and creation. The task isn't to suppress or annihilate this power. That would be akin to damming the river that nourishes your entire existence. The true purpose is to construct a proper channel for this energy, steering its current into constructive and creative outlets. The first step is dissolving shame and judgment. You must acknowledge your sexual energy as a sacred gift, not a curse. Stop fighting against your own body and its inherent desires. The second step is to connect this energy with the heart. When sexual desire merges with love, tenderness, and genuine respect for a partner, it ceases to be mere lust and transforms into tantra, a sacred union. This is no longer just a physical act. but a profound energetic exchange capable of inducing the highest spiritual experiences. Transmuted sexual energy is pure fuel for creativity. Many great artists, poets, musicians, and innovators possessed a powerful libido. They learned, whether consciously or instinctively, how to sublimate this intense energy, directing it away from physical union alone and into the creation of masterpieces. When you feel a surge of this potent energy, but lack the desire or opportunity to express it sexually, channel it directly into creation. Start painting, writing, dancing, or developing a new project. You will be astonished by the sheer power this impulse provides. Instead of being a slave to desire, you become its master. You learn to wield this fiery force, transforming it from a potentially destructive flame into a brilliant light that illuminates your path and warms the world around you. Lost is merely potential genius awaiting its unveiling. Next up on our list, we have envy, the green-eyed monster, as Shakespeare famously dubbed it. Envy is a silent, corrosive poison that eats away at the soul from the inside out. It is the pain we feel when witnessing someone else's success, happiness, or prosperity. But what is its esoteric root? Why do we even experience this feeling in the first place? Envy stems from the same source as pride, the illusion of separateness and comparison. When we forget that we are all parts of a unified whole, we start playing the game of who has more. We look at our neighbour and decide that their grass is greener, their car is newer, or their job is more prestigious, and instead of feeling happy for them, we feel a sharp pang of pain. Why? Because in our distorted worldview, their success signifies our failure. We perceive life as a zero-sum game. If someone won, it must mean we lost. But this is a profound delusion. The universe is boundless, and there is more than enough abundance for everyone. Another person's success does not subtract an ounce from your own potential success. In fact, envy serves as a crucial diagnostic tool. It acts like a compass needle, pointing directly to our own unfulfilled desires and unrealized potential. We don't envy the person. We envy what they possess or what they embody. If you envy someone's courage, it means your own courage is begging to be set free. If you envy someone's freedom to travel, it means your soul yearns for adventure. Envy is the distorted whisper of your soul saying, hey, I want that too. I'm capable of that too. But instead of hearing this powerful call to action, we redirect that energy into judging others and indulging in self-pity. We waste precious life force not on building our own beautiful garden, but on peering over the fence and resenting that the neighbour's roses are finer. Picture someone looking into a funhouse mirror. They see everyone else as enormous and successful, while they see themselves as small and insignificant. How do we actually turn the poison of envy into medicine? The alchemical process of transforming envy begins with radical self-honesty. You have to admit to yourself, yes, I am envious. Say it without judgment, simply stating the fact. Next, ask yourself the crucial question. What exactly am I envious of? What hidden desire of mine is this person highlighting? This crucial step shifts the focus away from the object of your envy and back onto yourself, onto your own genuine needs. Once you understand what you truly want, envy loses its hold over you. It stops being a painful, agonizing emotion and becomes a clear action plan. Instead of asking, why do they have it and I don't? You start asking, what steps can I take to get what my soul desires? The energy of destruction transforms into the energy of creation. The next step is to replace comparison with inspiration. Instead of seeing a successful person as a rival, see them as a teacher or a trailblazer. Their success proves that what you desire is, in fact, achievable. They've already paved the way, and you can learn from them. Be genuinely happy for them. On an energetic level, this is incredibly powerful. When you send another person energy of joy and blessing, you tune yourself into that same frequency. You are essentially telling the universe, I love this energy of success, and I want more of it in my life. And the universe responds in kind. And the ultimate level of envy transformation The true mastery is realizing your own unique self. Understand that you have your own path, your own unique gifts, and your own specific talents. Comparing your journey to someone else's is as pointless as comparing an apple tree to an oak. Every tree is beautiful in its own way and bears fruit in its own time. When you focus on unlocking your own potential, you simply won't have the time or the energy left over to envy others. Let's move on to gluttony. At first glance, it seems like the most straightforward and understandable sin, simply overindulgence in food and drink. But, as with the other sins, its esoteric meaning is far deeper and broader. Gluttony isn't really about food. It's about an attempt to fill an inner emotional and spiritual void with something external. Food is merely the most accessible and socially acceptable way to do this. When we are sad, lonely, or anxious, when we lack a feeling of love or purpose, our hand instinctively reaches for the fridge. Sweet, fatty, tasty food is a quick and easy way to get a dose of pleasure, to comfort our inner child, and to dull the pain. But it's a temporary painkiller that never cures the root cause. After a brief rush of endorphins, we are left with feelings of guilt, a heavy stomach, and an even greater void inside. In the modern world, gluttony has taken on new, sophisticated forms. We suffer from informational gluttony, consuming news, social media posts, and streaming shows non-stop. We scroll our feeds until our fingers go numb, attempting to saturate our minds that actually crave not information, but silence and meaning. We suffer from consumer gluttony, buying things we don't need in the hope that a new purchase will bring us happiness. At the root of all this is the same dynamic, hunger. But it is not a physical hunger, it is a spiritual one. We hunger for love, for acceptance, for connection with ourselves and with the world. And we try to satisfy this deep-seated hunger with surrogates. It's like trying to feed your soul a cheeseburger. On an energetic level, gluttony is an imbalance between taking and digesting. We take from the external world, but we don't give ourselves the time and space to assimilate, integrate, and process what we've consumed. The result is indigestion on a physical, mental, and emotional level. Imagine a person standing under a waterfall of sweets, news, and consumer goods, trying to stuff it all inside, but only choking on the flow. The transformation of gluttony begins with developing mindfulness. It's the ability to pause between impulse and action. When your hand reaches for that extra slice of cake, or instinctively grabs your smartphone, you need to stop for a second and ask yourself, what am I really feeling right now? What underlying need am I trying to meet with this action? You might discover you're not actually hungry, you just want a hug. Or perhaps you don't really need to check the news, you're simply afraid of being alone with your own thoughts. This mindful pause breaks the automatic cycle of discomfort leading to consumption. Instead of blindly trying to eat away your feelings, you start to process them and look for healthy ways to satisfy your true needs. If you feel lonely, call a friend. If you feel sad, allow yourself to cry or listen to music that matches your mood. If you're tired, rest. Don't stimulate yourself with caffeine and sugar. Transformed gluttony becomes the art of conscious enjoyment. This means eating slowly, appreciating every subtle flavour. It means consuming information mindfully, choosing only what truly nourishes your mind, rather than cluttering it. It is the ability to enjoy simple things, a walk in the park, a sunset, or simple quiet. When you find that source of nourishment within yourself, in your connection to nature, to creativity, to the silence of your own heart, your dependence on external stimulation weakens. You realize that true satisfaction comes not from quantity, but from quality. A single piece of chocolate, eaten with full presence and gratitude, can bring more fulfillment than an entire cake devoured quickly in front of the TV. You learn to distinguish true hunger from false hunger and feed your soul what it truly needs. Now let's talk about anger. This is arguably the most fiery and explosive energy of the seven. In mainstream society, anger is typically labelled as a negative, destructive emotion that we are taught to suppress. Since childhood, we are bombarded with messages like, don't get mad, be nice, or just keep calm. As a result, millions of people carry around tons of suppressed, unexpressed rage. Like a dormant volcano, this energy either explodes one day, devastating everything in its path, or it slowly poisons the individual from within, manifesting as depression, apathy, and various psychosomatic diseases. The esoteric tradition, however, offers a profoundly different viewpoint. Anger is not the enemy. It is a vital, life-affirming energy given to us specifically to protect our boundaries, assert our truth, drive us forward, and overcome obstacles. It is the divine spark within us that cries, "No!" to anything that seeks to destroy or humiliate us. Righteous anger is the very force that compelled prophets to expose injustice and drove revolutionaries to overthrow tyrants. The problem, as always, lies not in the energy itself, but in its distortion. When anger devolves into blind, uncontrolled rage, when it's focused not on solving a problem, but on destroying another person, that is when it turns into something destructive, or even a cardinal sin. Destructive fury only emerges when healthy, natural anger has been systematically suppressed. Imagine trying to keep the lid on a perpetually boiling kettle. Sooner or later, the pressure will blow the lid off, resulting in a violent explosion. Likewise, when we systematically ignore the signals of healthy anger, the alerts telling us that our boundaries have been violated or our needs are unmet, the energy accumulates until it finally erupts as an inadequate, destructive burst of rage. Ultimately, anger is our internal sentinel, standing guard over our personal space, our core values, and our integrity. To ignore this sentinel is simply to leave your gates wide open to any invasion. The transformation of anger is the art of turning an unruly flame into a highly focused laser beam. It's not about suppression, it's about consciously managing and directing this powerful energy. The first step is to legitimize your anger. Give yourself permission to truly feel it. You must understand that it is a normal and healthy reaction to certain situations. When you stop fearing your anger and judging yourself for it, it ceases to be your enemy and instantly becomes your ally. The second step is learning how to express it in a healthy way. Suppressing anger is harmful, but taking it out on others isn't the solution either. You need to find ways to release this energy without causing harm to yourself or to others. This could be physical activity, going for a run, hitting a punching bag, or screaming into a pillow. It could also be writing your feelings down on paper. The key is to let that energy out and prevent it from stagnating in your body. But the most crucial step is learning to listen to the message your anger is sending you. Every burst of anger should be treated as a signal. What is it trying to tell me? Which of my boundaries has been crossed? What vital need is unmet? What injustice has outraged me? Once you understand the root cause of the anger, you can direct that energy toward constructive action. For example, instead of yelling at a colleague who constantly dumps their work on you, you can use the energy of that anger to have a calm but firm conversation with them and set clear boundaries. Transmuted anger transforms into passion, resolve, and genuine leadership power. It is the energy that allows us to change our lives and the world for the better. It is the fuel needed to achieve your goals. When you are angry about the disorder in your life, this energy can finally help you put things in order. When you are outraged by social injustice, that energy can inspire you to create a philanthropic project. Instead of burning bridges, you learn to use this fire to light your own path forward. And so we arrive at the final, seventh deadly sin. And this one might be the most insidious and misunderstood of them all. Sloth, or despair. In the Latin tradition, it was known as acedia. This term captures its true essence far better than the modern word sloth. Acedia is not mere physical laziness or an aversion to work. It is a profound spiritual condition that the Desert Fathers called the noonday demon. It is total apathy, a loss of the flavour of life, a feeling that existence itself is meaningless. It's when you have everything you need to be happy, but nothing brings you joy. You lack the strength not only for great deeds, but even just to get out of bed. It is an existential sorrow, a grey veil that wraps around the world and drains it of all colour. Unlike the other, more fiery sins like wrath or lust, acedia is a cold, quiet murderer of the soul. It doesn't shout. It whispers, "What's the point? It's all futile. Nothing will ever change. Just lie still and don't move." This is a state of profound disconnection from the wellspring of vital energy. A person consumed by acedia loses touch with their own soul and their purpose. They forget why they are even here. They may continue mechanically performing their social functions, going to work, interacting with others, but inside they are dead. This condition closely resembles clinical depression, and often the two go hand in hand. In the modern world, despite the abundance of entertainment and opportunity, the epidemic of spiritual weariness and loss of meaning has reached unprecedented proportions. We live in an age characterized by a deep weariness of being. Why is this happening? One reason is our profound separation from nature, from living cycles, and from our own bodies. We exist in a virtual world, a realm of abstract goals and artificial stimuli. And our soul, our vital, animal, natural self, withers because of it. Picture a dried-out tree standing in the middle of a desert. It still has roots and branches, but there is no life within it, because it has been cut off from the water. How exactly do we break free from this paralyzing state of listlessness and despair? How do we reclaim the joy and zest for life? The transformation of acedia is essentially a journey back to yourself, back to your true nature. This journey begins not with grand accomplishments, but with very small, concrete steps. When you are overcome by listlessness, setting monumental global goals is a surefire way to plunge even deeper into despair. Your primary task is to restore energy to the body and anchor yourself firmly in the here and now. Simple physical actions are key. A walk outside, some light stretching, a contrasting shower. You need to literally jolt your body, forcing that stagnant energy to flow again. The next crucial step is finding a tiny source of joy or interest. You don't have to search for the meaning of your entire existence yet. Find something that can bring you pleasure right now, this very minute. Maybe a fragrant cup of tea, listening to good music, or playing with a pet. The goal is to pierce the grey cloud of apathy, if only for a moment, and create a small, temporary island of light. It is also vital to limit the flood of meaningless information and superficial interaction, which only worsen despair. Instead, seek out what truly nourishes your soul. A good book, meaningful connection with a kindred spirit, or simply observing nature. Once transmuted, despair transforms into deep wisdom and contemplation. Often, the state of acedia is a necessary pause, a dark night of the soul that must be navigated to truly reassess your life and find a new, deeper purpose. It is like the winter that precedes the inevitable spring. When a person finally emerges from this state, they are renewed. They begin to cherish the simple joys they previously took for granted. They find their true calling, not in goals dictated by society, but in what genuinely resonates within their heart. The energy of stagnation converts into a calm, confident, and deeply meaningful movement along their chosen path. Now that we've looked at each sin individually, let's step back, rise to a higher level, and examine the entire system as a whole. What overarching secret does this structure reveal to us? Esoteric wisdom teaches that the 7 deadly sins are actually a detailed map describing 7 distinct levels of distortion in our connection to the divine source. They map how our soul, our pure energy, can become entangled and lost within the labyrinth of the material world and the ego. Pride is the original act of separation, the moment we forget our inherent oneness with the whole. It is the root of all subsequent problems. From this feeling of separation and isolation, fear is born, and from fear, like a poisonous seed, all the other sins sprout. Greed is the fear of scarcity, the fear that we won't get enough in this seemingly hostile world. Lust and gluttony are the fears of inner emptiness, manifesting as an attempt to quiet that void through external pleasures and sensory gratification. Envy is the fear of our own insignificance, projected onto the success or abundance of others. Wrath, or anger, is the primal fear of being annihilated. It is a reaction to the violation of the boundaries we've erected to protect ourselves from the world. And sloth, or despair, is the endpoint. It is exhaustion from this entire struggle, the final surrender and resignation in the face of perceived meaninglessness. This system, therefore, doesn't describe moral failures as much as it describes energetic imbalances. Every single sin corresponds to a specific energetic center or chakra within the human body. For instance, lust and gluttony are linked to the lower centers, which govern survival and pleasure. Wrath connects to the center of willpower in the solar plexus. Envy and sloth relate to the heart center, which closes itself off to protect against pain. And pride aligns with the upper centers, which detach from the grounding energy and lose connection with the heart. Working with these energies is therefore not merely a mental exercise, it is a profound embodiment, a deep, physical, and energetic practice. Let's look at how this ancient framework surprisingly and accurately describes the problems of modern man. Our consumer society is fundamentally built upon cultivating and exploiting these 7 sins. Advertising constantly appeals to our pride. Buy this and you'll be better than everyone else. It fuels our greed, creating the illusion of endless needs. It exploits our lust, using sexualized images to sell everything from cars to soft drinks. Social media is a giant factory designed to manufacture envy. We scroll through the perfect pictures of others' lives and are left feeling inadequate. The fast food and entertainment industries thrive on our gluttony, offering easy and immediate ways to numb our inner emptiness. The media constantly feeds our wrath, or dividing people into us and them, and cultivating an atmosphere of hostility. And the outcome of all this is massive sloth, the epidemic of depression, burnout, and loss of meaning that is rampant today. Essentially, we are first provoked into these sins and then condemned for them, instilling massive guilt. This is an incredibly convenient mechanism for manipulation and control. But when you understand the true nature of these energies, you step out from under the power of this system. You stop being a puppet whose strings are pulled by marketers and politicians. You begin to see exactly how they try to hook you through your pride, greed, or envy, and you can make a conscious choice not to fall for the provocation. Understanding the esoteric meaning of the 7 deadly sins isn't just curious information. It is a powerful tool for achieving inner freedom and sovereignty in the modern world. It's a map that helps you navigate the jungle of mass culture and stay connected to your true self. The fundamental idea we need to internalize is this: these 7 energies are not intrinsically malevolent. In their pure, untainted form, they are absolutely necessary for a fulfilling life. Let's look at their brighter aspects. Transformed. Pride becomes self-respect, sovereign self-worth, and the awareness of your inherent divine value. This is not arrogance, but a quiet, powerful self-assurance that requires 0 external validation. Transformed, greed morphs into healthy ambition, a drive for growth, development, and the creation of abundance, not just for yourself, but for others. This is the energy of achievement that truly drives progress. Transformed. Lust have become sacred creative and sexual energy, allowing us to generate new life, new projects, powerful works of art, and deep loving relationships. Transformed. Envy becomes inspiration and healthy competition, motivating us to constantly evolve into the best version of ourselves. Transformed. Gluttony becomes true connoisseurship, the ability to savor life in all its richness, valuing quality experience over sheer quantity. Transformed. Wrath becomes passion, fierce resolve, and the ability to stand up for truth and protect the vulnerable. This is the energy of the warrior of light and transformed. Sloth becomes wisdom, deep contemplation, the capacity for profound introspection, and the ability to find peace and meaning in the quiet stillness. It turns out that every mortal sin is simply the shadow aspect of one of our inherent divine powers. Our task is not to cut off and discard these shadows, but to illuminate them with the light of awareness and integrate their power into our wholeness. Self-conflict is a path to nowhere. The true path to integrity lies through the acceptance and transformation of every part of ourselves, even the parts we were taught to label as bad. So, how does this transformation actually play out in practice? There are countless methods and techniques available, everything from psychotherapy to deep spiritual practices, but fundamentally they all share one core principle: non-judgmental observation. When you feel a surge of envy, anger, or despair, your first reaction is usually one of two things: either suppressing the feeling entirely or completely identifying with it and acting impulsively under its influence. Both paths lead to a dead end. The alchemical or transformative path is about becoming the observer of your own internal state. You step back, almost detaching yourself, and you say, "Oh, interesting. The energy of anger has just risen within me. How does it physically manifest in my body? Where exactly am I feeling it? What specific thoughts is it generating?" You don't judge yourself for having the anger, nor do you rush to unleash it on someone else. Instead, you simply study it with curiosity, the way a scientist observes a natural phenomenon. In that moment, something miraculous happens. When you observe an emotion without getting entangled in it, it immediately begins to lose its hold over you. You stop being the emotion. You become the one who is witnessing it. And in that space created between you and the emotion, the freedom of choice appears. You gain the power to decide what to do with that energy, direct it into a constructive outlet, as we discussed previously, or simply allow it to dissipate, like a cloud dissolving in the sky. This skill of conscious observation is the key to all inner work. You can develop it through meditation, journaling, and other mindfulness practices. Think of it like training a muscle. At first, it's difficult. The mind constantly slips back into old, habitual reactions. But with consistent practice, you become increasingly skilled at managing your inner landscape. You stop being a ship without a rudder, tossed about by the waves of random emotions. Instead, you become the confident captain, steering your vessel toward your intended goal, harnessing the power of the wind and waves for your own benefit. Let's address another crucial aspect. These 7 sins often intertwine, forming complex, tangled knots within our psyche. For instance, pride can breed envy, fueling the thought, "I am so superior. Why does he possess something I lack?" Envy, in turn, can spark wrath toward the object of your desire. To suppress these uncomfortable feelings, a person might turn to gluttony or lust, and when even that fails, despair and apathy set in. This is a vicious cycle that appears endless. To untangle this complex mess, we must pull the main thread: pride. As long as a person is trapped in the illusion of their separateness and exceptionalism, they are destined to suffer. This is precisely why all spiritual traditions emphasize humility so strongly. But it is vital to understand what true humility means. It is not humiliation or self-abasement. True humility is being at peace with the world. It is recognizing your proper place in the universe. It is the realization that you are neither better nor worse than anyone else. You are simply a piece of an immense, beautiful mosaic. When you attain this state, pride has nothing left to latch onto. You stop comparing and competing. Instead, you begin to cooperate and celebrate the success of others as your own, because you understand that we are all in the same boat. This state gives rise to genuine love and compassion, first toward yourself, imperfections and all, and then toward the rest of the world. This love is the primary healing elixir, capable of dissolving the poisons of the deadly sins. It fills the internal void we so desperately try to plug with substitutes. When you are filled with love, you require no external validation. Goodbye, pride. You do not fear scarcity. Farewell, greed. You stop seeking oblivion in fleeting pleasures, so long, lust and gluttony, and the cycle breaks. To conclude our deep dive, it is crucial to emphasize that this path of transformation is not a sprint. It's a marathon. It is truly a lifelong endeavor. You should not expect that watching a single video will permanently rid you of anger, envy, or despair. These energies are an inherent part of the human condition. They will surface again and again. The critical difference lies in how you choose to respond to them. Instead of viewing them as enemies or shameful weaknesses, you will begin to see them as your greatest teachers. Every surge of what we might call a sin is an opportunity for profound self-discovery. It is a signal, illuminating the areas of your soul that require healing and attention. It is, fundamentally, an invitation to grow. Gradually, step by step, you will learn not only to manage these energies, but to appreciate them. You'll recognize that it is precisely these qualities that make you alive, passionate and multifaceted. There is no light without shadow. Without lower energies, the higher ones cannot exist. An alchemist doesn't discard the lead, he transmutes it into gold. Similarly, your task is not to eliminate your so-called sins, but to transmute them into your greatest virtues. This path requires courage, honesty, and deep self-compassion. There will be setbacks. There will be moments of despair. This is perfectly normal. The key is never to stop. Keep observing, keep learning, and keep gently bringing yourself back to your center, back to your heart. And remember, you are not alone in this journey. Every single person on earth is navigating this same inner struggle and transformation. By realizing this, we can look upon each other, not with judgment, but with profound empathy and respect. All right, let's recap everything we've covered on this journey. We've established that the 7 deadly sins aren't a life sentence, nor are they a reason for endless guilt. Instead, they are simply distorted divine energies, an integral part of what makes us human. This is the major plot twist. What has been presented for centuries as pure evil is actually a roadmap to our hidden potential. Pride, in its core, conceals self-respect. Greed is a fierce drive for abundance. Lust is pure creative force. Envy is motivation and inspiration. Gluttony is the capacity to fully save a life. Wrath is righteous passion and determination. And sloth, or despair, is the gateway to profound wisdom. The core secret that was kept from us is this: we don't have to fight these energies. We simply need to understand them, accept them, and transform them through the light of awareness. We must stop being their slave and become their wise master instead. This is the true path of spiritual development, not running away from your shadow, but integrating it. Thank you for sticking with me throughout this entire journey. If you found this video valuable and it gave you something powerful to reflect on, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss future explorations into the mysteries of the human soul. Now, for the main question I want to pose to you, think back to your answer at the beginning of this discussion. Has your perspective changed now? And which of these sins do you personally find the most challenging, yet simultaneously the most resourceful? Share your thoughts and your stories in the comments below. Let's create a space for honest and deep discussion.